start the recording, and I'm going to welcome you guys to this ArtPlay Ikigai video inspiration. So as you know, for a couple of weeks now I have been, or for a couple of months now with the new collection, I've been doing these videos via Twitch. It's super fun. You guys get to come along and watch me create with the new digital art supplies. So of course in this collection, it was actually based on a request, a customer request. For something to do with reunions, because of course this summer has been the time where most of us have been able to get out of lockdown. I know some of us are in lockdown and we're probably going to go back into lockdown, but we've had this few months of reprieve where we've been able to kind of gather with other people, we've been able to hang out. Certainly for me it's been a family summer. We had Ella graduate, she's going off to college, we've had a number of different kind of vacations with friends. And so reunion was quite apt. And then of course I talked for a while about doing a blue and yellow kit. I think I was using the ArtPlay palette Plumera, and I realized I didn't have too many collections in this blue and yellow. So this is kind of what transpired based loosely on these ideas of reunion, and then wanting to use this color palette. So it's got kind of a more muted feel than some of the previous collections. Lends well for heritage pages, so you could use photos from the past all the way up through the present. And if I remember at the end, I want to go through some of the team layouts that they've created using this collection. I forgot to do that in the last session that we had. So I thought that I would just kind of create a couple of layouts. I'm actually going back to my June photos, mainly because July and August we were getting together with some friends and they asked specifically not to share the photos of them. So you'll notice that the photo-inspired pages that I was able to create for July, they have sort of some smudginess on them because I needed to sort of black out those people. So I thought I'd go back to June, which was Ella's birthday. June, July, we did a camping trip with friends, and then we also had Ella's graduation. So some people photos that I thought would work really quite well with the frames. So I'm going to go and do a frame layout first of all. So we have the ArtPlay palette Ikigai collection, and in here I actually keep the transfers and the ArtsYKardz that come with this collection as well. I like to keep those with the ArtPlay palette because I feel like they work really well. That's fairly new for me to do that. I used to keep them separately, but I find that now I keep them together with the ArtPlay palette. I'm more inclined to use them a little bit more. It makes sense to have the transfers and the overlays and the transfers together, and then the ArtsyKardz with the Artsy papers I think work really well too, especially if you're working in that photo-inspired format. And I also pop those templates into this collection here too. I've got FotoInspired 2T. These are the new templates, and I thought maybe I would create a page using those as well to sort of double up a little bit and give you, you know, a bonus for kind of kill two birds with one stone with your time here. So usually when I start with a collection, I typically start with a Artsy paper, just because it's easy. So the two that I really like, I mean I like them all, but the two that I'm interested in using maybe are these two. So I'm going to open those into my workspace and just drag them in there, and they open up like that. The other option of course is to create your own Artsy paper, and you can do that by selecting an Artsy background, or a solid background, sorry, and then you can use the transfers and overlays or the transfers to create a your own custom design. So maybe we'll do that in a second layout. So I've got these two different options here, and first of all I want to go and choose a photo that I potentially want to use. So maybe this one. The photo isn't super great because it was so steamy that day that my phone got kind of all steamed up. So it kind of adds to the story of the photo. So I'm not too concerned about it. So I'm going to just drag this in, and hopefully it's going to open. Oh, it looks like this is a video, but that's fine. We'll make it work. Sometimes I can't tell if the images are videos or if, so this must be the video format, the photo format, sorry. So I'm going to open this up like this and we'll close this one down. So now I have my photo open, and so in order to be able to test which kind of background I prefer for this photo, I can really just drag it onto either one. And to be honest with you, I don't think it really matters which one I go with. The photo's a little small, so I'm going to just increase the size of it just a little bit like that. So either one of these backgrounds would work. I think because there's a lot of blues in this photo, then this is the one that I want to go with. And you'll notice I'm working directly on the background here. You can also go to File, New, of course, and create a new layout, and then drag the two layers across using that move tool onto your new canvas, and then close this one out. It's always best to use a new layout, because if you accidentally save over a paper, then I mean, I guess you could re-download it, but it's just easier, probably, and much better to do it this way. So I'm going to go with this approach, and I'll zoom in so that you can see better. So it's always a double-edged sword for me, because I like to be able to see the edges of my canvas, but I also want you guys to be able to see the image as well as being able to reach my tools. So it's kind of trying to find a balance of what works best. Okay, so I designed specifically to go with this collection. These frames, these are FramedMasks number 10. So there's lots of different options here. And ideally you want to choose a photo that is of the same orientation as the frame. So in this case we've got a portrait photo. So I'm looking at either this one, which would work really well probably for a single person or maybe a couple, and this one's probably going to work better for what we're working with. But bear in mind too that these landscape frames you could always rotate by 90 degrees and make them into from a landscape to a portrait. So I'm going to go and look and find out where these frames are. So this is the frame that I was thinking of using. This would be the easiest option. And you want to open this frame into the background here because it's a PSD file. And we want to make sure that we retain all of these layers. If I go ahead and drag this frame directly onto my layout, then you can see that all of those frames, all of those layers in that frame layer, they become a single layer. And so when I try to clip my photo to this and go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, it's not going to yield the effect we're looking for. I really want to have a framed image here. So if I delete that layer and we go back to our layered file here, I can click on the first layer in the Layers panel, hold down the Shift button, and click on the last layer, and then drag all of those layers over onto my canvas like that, and then close out the original. And so now when I drag my photo up above any of these layers, so you'll notice that there are 6 different layers. We've got this distressed mask layer, and then we've got the shadow layer behind the frame. Then we have a clean mask layer, so if I want to introduce that, I can do, or I can turn off the visibility by clicking on the eye icon next to the mask. And then we have a frame layer, a texture layer, it's very subtle paper texture, and then an edge layer. So if you wanted to have the edge on there, I do quite like that edge. You can play with the opacity, you can change the color of that edge. So if I wanted to go to Edit Fill with that Preserve Transparency box checked, and then click on the color, and then I can use that color picker to maybe sample this dark blue, click OK, and now it's just going to soften that black edge with more of a blue edge, so it looks like it has sort of a blue pencil mark. Very subtle change, but it can make all of the difference. If you have been to any of my sessions before, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of off kind of a dark brown, a dark gray, a dark blue as opposed to black, because I find that black is very stark. So I'm going to drag my photo above this distressed layer, and I want to make sure that the edges of my photo extend beyond the edges of the mask. And then I'm going to go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. And so it's as simple as that really for these kind of group photos. I find that with group photos, it's much easier to place them in a frame than it is to try and blend them. And the reason being is that most of these photos with people in them, they tend to be fairly closely cropped, so you don't have a lot of area around the edge to blend away. And then also too, I consider these as focal subject photos. So then there isn't just one focal point, we've got 4 focal points here, and I think that the cleanness of the frame really throws the focus onto the image. So you can see that my photo doesn't exactly extend over the edges of my mask, and I really don't want to increase the size of my photo any more than I already have. I generally suggest you don't increase the size of your photos by more than about 25%, because of course as you stretch that photo out, you're going to start losing the print quality of that photo. And just to check, I want to go into 200%. And like I said, it's not a great quality photo, this one anyway, because it was quite steamy and my camera got quite hot, or my iPhone got hot, but that's okay for as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to zoom this out, and then I want to play around just with editing it. Now you'll notice that we've got a little bit where the mask here, you can see we've got some areas of the mask, and this is affecting Luke's face and a little bit of Ella's face. So in order to correct that, I'm going to select the paintbrush tool, and I'm just going to go up to my blending brush, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to paint directly on the mask, and just make sure that we have all of these facial features. And if I go ahead and turn off that now, you can see where I've painted directly onto the mask. Let me know if you have any questions as we go through this. This is fairly kind of straightforward at the moment. And then I'm going to go to zoom out, and then I want to just try and improve the quality of this photo. So with that photo layer selected, I'm going to go to image adjustment levels, and I'm going to increase the highlights, the shadows, maybe the midtones a little bit. And then the other thing that I can do to sharpen this photo a little bit is to duplicate this layer by dragging the layer down to the new layer icon. That's at the bottom of the layers panel in Photoshop, or the top if you're working in Elements. And then I'm going to go to Filter, Other, and then High Pass. And this allows me to sort of play around. I want to move the radius so that I get a nice outline, and then I'm going to set that to overlay, and that's just going to help sharpen it. So if I zoom in a little bit and I turn that layer off, you can see how that sharpens the image somewhat. And you can duplicate that again and get even more sharpness, but you don't want to do it too many times, otherwise you're going to end up with over sharpened images. So kind of zoom in, and then I'm going to turn off, I think, that second layer, just to make sure that we don't end up with too much sharpness. And then the other thing that I might do here too is the photo's quite bright, which I don't mind, and it's blue and it's great. If I wanted to play around with the digital art supplies a little bit, I could select that background, and I could go to Image Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and I could maybe increase the saturation a little bit if I wanted to make that more saturated to match my photo. Conversely, I could take the photo and I could go to Image Adjustment, Hue and Saturation, and bring that saturation down and make it more muted. So either or, just a few fun ways that you can manipulate the digital art supplies. And then from here, it's a matter, of course, once we've got our layout foundation and we have got our photo in place, then we move to the words. Is always the second component because they provide context to our design. So if I go to my Ikigai collection, of course all of these collections come with WordART, and I specifically provided you with WordART that was appropriate for families, gathering again, reunions. So kind of looking through and seeing which one is most appropriate of this. Not really gather again, family is everything, reason for being, whole lot of love, us. So maybe I will go, and what I like to do with these WordART, and my kind of idea of providing you with these different types of WordART is that you can kind of mix and match 3 of these different pieces together to create an interesting WordART piece. So the idea being is that you would maybe take one of these word strips and you would combine it with maybe a word transfer and a wood word. Or you could take the beaded threads, which says reunion, and you could combine that with maybe a WordART and a wood thread. I mean, a wood word. I wouldn't necessarily take the WordART with the word strips because they're very similar. So you want to try and choose 3 or even 2 different pieces of WordART and put them together to create a title. So what I'm thinking is family is everything, mainly because we don't have too many family photos together, sadly. So maybe bring this up here. And at the moment, I'm just kind of seeing how these pieces might fit together. And this actually fits better than I expected. So that works really well down there. And then maybe we'll go and get gather again, reunion, worth the wait. So we could use this worth the wait. I did just use this on a page, but of course this was Ella's graduation. So just different options. So it would be either or. So it would be either that or it would be that. So at the moment I'm leaning towards this. And then I'm thinking that maybe I will bring in us, and then maybe one of these, so festive, so we're celebrating, and us. So maybe I'll bring these in, add them on like that. You'll notice that you can bring in multiple files together, and then maybe place this over the artistry in the background here. So I'm just reordering the layers. So I could play around with the placement of this. I quite like that there. And then we can select this wood word. I love these wood words. I think they're super fun. And then add this maybe over here. And then add a drop shadow layer style. So I actually have styles loaded in my styles panel, but if you wanted to add one, you could go to layer style, and then drop shadow. And that's going to add the last shadow that I applied. And I'm just going to change the color to more of a gray, and then bring down the opacity a little bit, maybe change the distance, increase the size a little bit, change the angle maybe to 120. I typically like my opacity to be around between 40 and 60 really, and click OK. So once I have my words in place, I want to make sure I have space for my journaling. So the journaling would come next, and so you're going to select the type tool. And you can create a journaling box by using the type tool, clicking down and dragging and creating a text box. And it's going to post in some standard text there. So maybe I want my text box here. Maybe I want to place it over here. So I've got a couple of different options of where I have my text box. I typically write the text last, but it's always nice to know at this point where I could place my text so that I leave space for it, and I don't cover it up with too many elements. So go ahead and we'll just change that red text to black. The other way to add a text box, another way that I like to do it too, is to go and grab the Artsy Layered Template and bring that into my workspace, and then just take one of the text boxes from there. Because these are pre-made text boxes. The spacing is already done, the font is already there, so I can just literally just drag it and drop it. And I can bring it over here if I want to, and if I want to change the proportions of it, I'm going to click on that type tool, and then using the points on the dotted line, I can make this box pretty much any shape that I want. I can also increase the size of text by going copy and then paste. So this is just standard text, which of course when I come to my journaling, I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to type over it like that and type in the text that I want to add. So I'm going to leave it like that for now, and we'll just minimize this, and then it's a matter of going and now embellishing. So I've got two options when I embellish. I can use the elements that come with ArtPlay Palette Ikigai. And I apologize for these black thumbnails. It's something to do with Windows 10. I have no idea how to fix it. To be honest with you, I'm not too concerned about it, but I do like to explain. So I might want to add in, maybe add in this ribbon wrap here. So I could select the shadow layer and the ribbon wrap layer and maybe add it here and see if that kind of work. So I could add that into the mix if I wanted to, like that, to bring that down a little bit. And then also too, I could go and see what else. So notice I've added the ribbon wrap there because it makes sense to do so. And I'm also looking at what other options that I have. So there's this blue lavender, which is quite nice here. So I could add this in. And I'd be looking to align this. This is a sort of a very long, narrow element. And so the idea for this would be to align it maybe with one of the horizontal lines. So either the frame or even the wrap that we just added. So I could add that in like that. I'd have to, of course, then shift around this family as everything, maybe make it smaller so that it fits into that space better. And it's up to you how many elements you add to the mix. I personally am kind of a less is more type person, so I will typically maybe add 3 elements. You could add more, but it just kind of starts to get a little bit busy. See, I feel like that is now we're adding a bit too much. I can always make it smaller, of course, but because it's the same color as the ribbon, it loses its appeal. So for me, I think that I would keep it just like that. And because we've placed the elements so close to the text, then it sort of becomes one focal point. So I call this an embellished word art piece. So that's kind of the way I would go with that. My other option here is to turn these off, elements off, if I want a different option. And I could go and select the multimedia flowers. And these have got lots of different options. And these are actually designed to go with the different pages. So I can drag this into my workspace. And if you have the whole collection, one of the things I started doing, must be over a year ago now, is that when you buy the whole collection, then you get this bonus kind of little mini palette. It really is. It's sort of grown a little bit. But this includes, this time, 2 papers. So you get this full paper, and then you get this other paper here, and then there's a multimedia element, which is quite special. I guess I went a bit overboard with this one, but it's got this really cool element here, which is quite fun. So I could take this if I wanted to. Let's go ahead and select all these layers by holding down the Shift button, clicking that first and last layer. So that would work quite well. And you see how you can just drag and drop that onto your canvas. I could also have it down here too. I could have it here and then play around with shifting the word art around. So you sort of have to kind of move things around with the different elements. And the beauty of these flowers or these multimedia elements is that because the layers are all individual, that they come in different layers, you can use those layers individually and you can manipulate them. So if I don't like the photo glow, I can turn it off. I can move this photo glow, maybe have it at the top here and have it more like a sun. I can change the blending mode of it from hard light to vivid light, or even overlay. Overlay is quite nice. It lightens it up, but it's not too much. So maybe add that at the top here. And I can just generally sort of move these elements around a little bit. So if I wanted to split this up, I could do that. Let's go ahead and turn that off. And then maybe move this up here and have it like that. So you can see how I can move these different pieces around, and sort of as I move them around, then that creates the invitation to start moving all of these other pieces around. So what I might want to do with this family word art now is to maybe nudge that in like that, and then with the selection tool, select part of that word strip, and then copy and paste or cut and paste that word onto a new layer so that I can play around with maybe changing the layout of that. And that's going to allow me to have a little bit more control on how I move these pieces of word art together. So maybe have it like that. And then kind of want something in this space here. I don't particularly want to move this, I don't think. Or maybe I do want to move it. So you can move these pieces around to make them fit. So I have this like this, and then we move maybe clock over a little bit and the stitching. So like that. So I'm pretty happy with that. And this might be an opportunity to go back to that. Let's go ahead and close this out. Go back to this flower here, and then maybe I add this in the background here. So you'll notice I've got the flower, and I could change the arrangement of that, so I can have it below the frame, I can have it on top of the frame, and that's going to fill in that area there. I can rotate this around a little bit. So I quite like that. That just fills that little space in like that. And then of course I can go and add my journaling in. Any questions about that? Liz says you are the shortest one in the family. I know, it's no joke. I was just saying, Luke grew another inch in the last month. He's like 6'3" now. And I look tiny, and I'm 5'9". I'm really quite tall myself, but between Ella, who's 6 foot, and Luke, who's now 6'3", they make us look really short. Kim says, I've said this often about palettes, but this is really fabulous APP. Love everything about it. Thanks so much, Kim. And then Liz says she really likes the multimedia pack. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to call it, we'll save it in the right place. I've been saving these layouts to where I have the kits saved. So I'm going to go to Ikigai, and then I'm just going to save this as Ikigai 1, like that. And of course go in later and maybe add some journaling. And then go ahead and close this out. I'm just actually seeing something. What is that? Over Luke's face. It looks like oh, there we go. So there's it looks like, oh, it's the layer. It's the layer that I was using to sharpen it. So I'll put that back, turn that one off. I managed to move it somehow and turn it off. So let's go ahead and save. So as I was saying before, is you can, as well as using the background, and I'll just go back to the bonus collection, but there's also layout ideas. So I provide you with 5 different layouts using the Artsy papers and the frames, and kind of give you an idea of how to put those 5 layouts together and how they're designed to go together. So these kind of ArtPlay palettes, they don't come together by accident. I actually plan the layouts for you, and so that you can use these layout ideas to bring your compositions together. So you could use a pattern paper. This might actually be fun. I'm not typically one to use a pattern paper, but let's open this up and we'll see kind of what we can do with it. So what you can do is you can, if I go back to our frames, so I can use a frame if I wanted to. So we used that one. We don't want to use it again. That was a horizontal one. I was thinking of this one. So it depends on your style. Typically, I don't use pattern papers as a background because I find them a little bit too busy. But if you have a very simple photo, they can work quite well. So let's go and we find a picture. I think there must be one of her by herself. Maybe here she is. So let's go ahead and bring this one in. Drag it directly onto the canvas and sort of bring the photo so it fits over the frame, and then drag the photo down on top of the frame layer and go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. So you can see how quickly I was able to do that, and this actually works really well with the background. If I want to adjust the color a little bit, I can maybe tweak that and kind of bring more purples in, more purples and greens. If I want to be more specific with the color, I can go to the master and say we just want to change the blues. Then you can see that the yellows stay the same, but I can bring more of that purple in, which coordinates with her, her gown. I'm going to use curves this time just to bounce up that color. and then you can go ahead and you can embellish it. So because this is a super simple layout, then I can probably get away with this Artsy paper. Another way to use this paper would be to use it kind of with a clipping mask. So if we were to create a new layout, let's go back to our ArtPlay palette and go to our papery, and then maybe I want to start with this white paper. So we'll bring this in, and then we can go to, let's see what else we've got here. We can go to our transfers and overlays, and I can bring in any of these layers. So I'm just going to bring in a selection of them and just drag them directly onto my paper. Now some of these have sharp edges or straight edges, so this means that you're going to have to place them flush up against the edges of your canvas. Other ones don't, so they're a little bit more flexible. So you can kind of move this around. You can rotate it if you want to. You can also layer it with other transfers. So if I wanted to add, this has got a hard edge, so that's going to have to go at the top here, but we can maybe drag this transfer up. This, I'm grabbing the wrong one. I think it's because the auto select options checked. It keeps grabbing hold of it. So we can kind of play around with, maybe do something like that and have this on top. So you can layer these up. And then where this paper could come in, let's see, do we have this one here? So this one here we could place, trying to find a good fit for this one. Change the, so maybe that one's not going to work. So let's see what else we've got over here. So maybe bring this one in. This one could go on the side here. Maybe bring this one up. Maybe move this over. I kind of like that. I like this piece here. You can duplicate the transfers to make them stronger. And then if I wanted to customize this, I can go to layer. Let's merge these two layers together that I've just duplicated. And then I could take this background, and if I wanted to change that, I can create clipping mask. So I can now play around with different options for that transfer. So maybe have it like that. And because it's more purple now, we need to change this color. So I'll go to hue and saturation, change the blue there, and let's make that more purple. Maybe make it lighter. If I want to lighten it up further, I can go to curves and lighten that up. I can also go to levels, change that, and it's still quite dark compared to that. So my way of approaching this is the path of least resistance. And so if it's harder to change this, I'm more inclined to go to this and then change this color back to more of a blue. Maybe make that darker like that. And then if I don't want to use the frames this time, then there's nothing to stop me from going back to some of my previous collections. They work quite well together. I do generally work within a collection, but if I'm looking, like in this case, I was for a recent layout, I did this one for yesterday's Connect. And so I didn't want a frame, I wanted something more fluid. So this is where I went back to my alfresco collection, and I dipped into my Photo Blends overlays, and I was looking for a more blended approach. So I can pull in any of these images. I'm looking for a portrait style one, and I had lots of choice there. Select all of those layers, drag them onto my canvas, and I want to make sure that those layers sort of sit on top of my foundation layers. So I'm going to take these layers, these foundation layers, and I'm going to go to, I just need to unlock the background, and then I can go to layer, group layers, and I'm just going to call this foundation because that's my layout foundation. And then this is my clipping mask. So I'm going to go to layer, group layers, and I'm going to call this FB for photo blends. And so what that does is it keeps all of my layers quite neat and tidy. And I can resize this. I can rotate it if I want to slightly. I can also duplicate this if I want to make it more intense. So I have those different options available to me. Okay, so I've got a question here, just curious, where do you get the names for the ArtPlay palettes? I didn't know how to pronounce this one until I heard you just now, and I love it. It's actually a Japanese word. I am a bit of a wordsmith. I actually went to college and I did German. I have a bachelor's in German language and literature. And I also did French. I was very good at languages. I've also learned a little bit of Russian over the years. I've learned a little bit of Spanish. And so I'm just super interested in words. And so I use the thesaurus quite a bit. I'll come up with an idea for a kit and I'll use the thesaurus. Sometimes I will go into Google Translate and I'll put in a word and I'll see what other languages what they use, what the word is in their language. And then sometimes I find really cool words on Pinterest too. You know, I'm kind of, and I save them. So, you know, as most people have kind of inspiration boards, I save words because I think that they're really cool. And then I also subscribe to, I think it's dictionary.com, and each day they send me a word of the day, and they sometimes have some really cool words. So that sometimes comes up. But usually I come up with a theme for the palette, and then I find a word that is appropriate and describes that palette and that theme, if that makes sense. Ruby Lynn says, bought Ikigai when it first came out, but haven't had a chance to play with it yet. Love the darker blue palette. Will go nicely with my recent Amsterdam trip. It will be perfect for Amsterdam. I've been lucky enough to go there, and of course a lot of the colors there are the antique blue, like you said, and then that sort of ivory cream color. So now I've got my my photo blends in place. Then I can go, let's move away from graduation and let's maybe move towards something a bit different. This was really fun, and these are the right colors too. So I love these pictures of Luke. I love it when he closes his eyes like that. This is with his eyes open. So I'm going to bring these in, and let's see if we can make this work. And the mask might not work for this, and it's a small photo, it looks like. So I'm just going to increase it slightly and go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. So it kind of works. We just are missing a little bit of Ella's face and a little bit of Luke's face, but we can fix this. So all I'm going to do is go into that group of layers and create a new layer. And then with my brush, I'm just going to paint in the areas that I want to see. I've got to be careful here that we've got nice smooth lines. So I can add that into the mix like that. I don't know if I need that background one. We can turn that off. I can also play around with the blending modes if I want to. I don't think the blending modes is going to work very well in this case because we've got quite a lot of design in the background. So I'll keep it on the pass-through like that. And I might want to edit the photo a little bit. So we can go to curves here, lighten that up a little bit. I can go to my saturation, maybe make that just a little bit more saturated. I want to go back and just like that, and then we can go and see what we've got for our words. Those are the photos, wrong folder. So let's go back to the words here. Memory making resumes back to our roots with the way. There's not really anything here that is really reason for being. I guess reason for being is the most appropriate word. Of course, it's a word strip again. So I could use this, but again, there's nothing to stop me from maybe going back into another recent collection. So let's go and see what we've got. Available, I've got Alfresco, which is outdoors, which isn't really going to work for this. But we did have Obeyed, so let's see what's in there. Rise and Shine, Seize the Day, Soothe the Soul. This is more kind of good vibes, so this could work. Happy Place, Wild and Free. So I usually start with some sort of word art and then I kind of fill it out. So we could have the good vibes here too, if I wanted to. So again, it's an either or. I kind of like the reason for being, though. I really love this picture of these two together. I've just noticed here we've got this harsh line down the side here. So that means I now have to go and maybe remove this stain. You can see that stain there. If I remove that, then it pretty much gets rid of that harsh line. And then maybe find out where these other, so if you turn off the layers, so maybe I'll make this layer a bit smaller just so we can get rid of that. And then I think this top looks like this is the other offending party, so we'll just kind of move that in to get rid of that harsh line there. And then we can go, once we have the word art, we can maybe add a little bit more. So amassed, probably jovial, so that works. And then we've got love. So I'll add these in to our design, drag them up to the top of our layout so that we can see them. And I might want to drag this word transfer down above the foundation, although it's just got dropped into this group. That's the only problem with using groups, is that when you start moving elements around, they get dropped into the groups as opposed to it staying independent. So that's one disadvantage I find of using groups. So I'll maybe bring that one up here, and then we can get this love, and we'll add this here. And I'm just going to use one of my styles to add that in, and it, for some reason it messes up every time. Doesn't get the angle right, so I always have to go in and change the angle. I don't know why it does that, but it does. Maybe move this over just a little bit. Okay, and then I kind of feel like we need some sort of element around here on this area here. So I'm going to go, make it easy, go to my multimedia flowers and look at the preview to see what options we have. And this blue one here, and I think that was this first one that I pulled in. I've opened this one up already, I think. So I can drag that in, have all those layers selected, and sort of move it over. But it doesn't really fit there. I feel like it fits better here. So maybe we add that in like that. And I feel like we need to add something here. So this is where I would go to my artsy stains. There's lots of different collections of artsy stains in the store. Or we know what would be a really good idea here is to use my artsy transfers. So I'm going to go back into Ikigai, go into my artsy transfers, and I want to find a stain. So like this yellow stain here, I'm going to open that up. And so the beauty of these artsy transfers is you can use these different layers independently. So I can bring this in here like this, and I can just drag that on there. And maybe rotate this round. That's not going to work. So that's not going to work. It's also in the wrong. I also want to make sure I add this on top of the foundation, so I'm going to create a new layer there so that when I drag it in, it's not going to get pulled into the group. So this might work though too, this texture, this paper texture, because I can potentially bring this paper texture down like that by using the paper texture in here. So we've got this, and so maybe pull this around and add that like that. So that works quite well. I can go and tidy it up by erasing some areas if I want to, like that. And I like that. And then, I don't know, I can add my journaling in, I guess. It's a perfect place for the journaling. Let's go ahead and close some of these layers out. I might actually just bring this lace or tape transfer in too and just see if that will go somewhere. This is where you can kind of just stop building up the layers and build up the complexity. So maybe I want to add this in. I could drag it down to the bottom to change the order of that. I like it like that. Let's go ahead and zoom out. So you have to be careful about rotating these dimensional elements because you want to make sure that you maintain the integrity of the shadow. You don't want to end up with the shadow going the wrong way, like that. Because you want to kind of keep it. So I kind of like it like that. And that sort of just fills up that area a little bit. And always end up with all of these files open, so then I have to go in and close them all out. Clear up my space a little bit. Zoom in so you guys can see it a little bit better. And then I think we still have the template open. So I'm going to drag this in like this and put my journaling there. So that's kind of layout number 2. So any questions about that, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and go save. We'll call this Ikigai number 2. Of course, we have this template here, which is kind of fun. So the way I would use this template is to bring in a paper. So different options. Let's go with the dark one, a light one, and maybe a medium one, maybe a yellow one too. So I pull in all of these solid papers and I pull them in so that they sit directly above the background, and then I can see which one is best. And so I really like the texture up here. Any of these would work really well. I feel like that one might be a bit too dark, but any of them. I like the blue one. The white one, we lose that texture. And then, of course, the yellow, we have the texture in. So it's kind of up to you. I'm going to go with the white one, I think, because I feel like it tones down the yellow a little bit. And then you can go in and let's go back to our photos here. So if I wanted to add in a bunch of different photos of this event, here's Ella with her birthday dessert. So she should probably have center stage. So because I've already got 2 framed photos, I'm probably not going to use the frame masks here. This is where I would likely go back and I would find, again, borrow from another collection, one of the photo blends overlays. We used this one. We've got this one that could work. In fact, they could all work really, because even the ones that are more in portrait, in a landscape orientation, I can rotate it by 90 degrees and make it more landscape. So we can add this in here, and you got to be careful of the layers. It's because I've got the auto select option. I just pulled in the PNG version this time instead of using all of the PSD layers. 9 times out of 10 I use the PNGs because I find them easier to work with. But I feel like that works pretty well there. I want to make sure I drag this mask down below the frames so it sits on top of the artistry, but below the frames. And then I can pull in our photo of Ella, and that was probably increase the size of it just a little bit much, and click OK like that. And then for this one, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this layer and merge it down. Now let's see how this looks. So that looks pretty good. And then again, just take that brush and just kind of bring in her face. And then we've got all the nice texture around it. If I want to change the color, I can go to the curves if I want to go to and bring down the saturation a little bit, I can do that, maybe just a little bit. And then the idea being is that I can put the photos in. So let's have Luke pulling a face here. Add him to this frame. So these make super simple, quick and easy pages. So I'm going to go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and just bump up the curves of that one. And then this one, let's go. We can have Eric in there. I think there's a picture of, oh no, there's a picture of the three of us, but not a picture of Eric. So maybe I'll put Eric in the other one. So we'll add him up the top here and add him in here. And typically for these double frames, I like to use the same photo twice. So in this case, you can see that I've kind of lost his head a little bit. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to make sure I've got him in that shot. I'm going to edit the photo, and then I'm going to duplicate that photo by dragging it down to the new layer icon and then dragging it down to that area below. And I'm just going to clip it on like that. And it's okay that his head is offset. The other thing I can do too is I can just use, I don't want to increase it, let's go back and grab that photo again. So if I drag this photo over, and I can just use the sky part of that photo and go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and call it good. And then we can change the title here. I don't necessarily want these girls in my picture here. There was a gaggle of girls that came in for a 30th birthday party and they all had pink hair. So I can just use a brush just to kind of knock them out of the picture. And then go back to, now this is a gather page. So I can go back to my Ikigai and we can go to here and we can go gather again. I think gather again is good because this is one of our favorite restaurants that we haven't been to in a while. Now, I tried to add that photo, and because I had my clipping set selected, then it was trying to drop that title in between, and it would have basically unclipped the photo from that mask. So I'm going to drag this over now. Notice now, because I didn't have this layer selected, then it's going to deposit the WordArt on top of my photo as opposed to within the clipping mask. I'm going to grab this and bring it over, and then I just have to add my journaling. And then if I wanted to add an easy embellishment, then I'm going to maybe select, this one might be fun. I was kind of thinking of the other one, but let's see what this one is like. Have this up here. It doesn't work like I thought it would, but what we can do is we can modify it. So if I go and I turn off or just move some of these photo glow layers, maybe move the photo glow up in the corner, and then I think I want to turn off these leaves, but that works quite well over there. And then this little flower button here, we can maybe bring over here like this, and then this button here, we can maybe just make a bit smaller and leave like that. And then I might want to add some stitching into this mix, and I don't know if I have any recent stitching. So one of the things I can do is I can go to one of my template sets. So I know I included stitching with the new templates. So if I go into these templates and I look, you can see I've got stitching in there. So I can drag this template open and I can select some of the stitching, make sure I have the correct layer selected, and then copy and then Control V to paste that stitching onto my layout. And I can maybe move this down like this and make it a bit smaller. So I could add some stitching into the mix if I want to. I can add it here, here. I don't want to over Luke's face necessarily, so maybe have it like that. I kind of like it like that because this curve isn't impeding on any of the faces. It aligns with these frames and it draws the eye down to connect with this element here. And then go to File, Save As, and then that's Layout 3. Go ahead and close this down. So, and then we have this template here. We've got a bunch of these templates. So these templates are the new Ikigai templates, and they're designed to work in pairs, or you can use them individually. So that means I can take these two different templates and I can put them side by side, or I can use one of those pages independently. And so there are 3 different folders of these different templates. I like this one here. In fact, I like them all, but I'm just looking for one. This one's kind of fun too. So let's go ahead and open this up, bring this into my workspace. And so this is a great way for using those ArtsyKardz because they're already pre-designed in these sizes. So if I go back to my ArtsyKardz, you can see we've got the multi-pack here. I've actually pulled out all of the JPEGs because I like to see when I'm creating them, there's enough variation between them. So you can use the layered files, or you can just use the PSD files. I'm going to use these. So these are the 6x6 ones, and these fit great over these square masks. So maybe add that one there. We can add one down here. So there's typically 2 of these 6x6 cards. And then of course you can also use the solid papers from the actual ArtPlay palette Ikigai collection. So maybe I want to bring in this blue one and add this one up to the corner here. So I can keep it in that aspect ratio, or I can make it smaller to include more detail. And I can move this around to find the best fit. Maybe we want to pick a solid paper. Go with this blue one this time. Add this into the mix. And that lands perfectly at the bottom there. And then I can add my photos in if I want to. So let's go and see what we've got in the way of photos. I had some cool I guess the 4th of July photos must be in July. So let's go in here. These are kind of the best of the 4th of July photos. So these are all the cousins. So maybe we'll do a 4th of July page, because the blue works quite well with that. So I'm going to select this mask here, drag this in, go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. I can boost up the curves. I always like to do that. I think that using the curves like that is such a great way to lighten a photo. And then this was a fun shot of them setting off fireworks, so I'll add this one down the bottom here. We'll make that much smaller. And I'm just going to boost up the curves a little bit, not too much because we don't want to lose the idea that it's nighttime. And then keep going to the wrong folder. Well, then there's Luke with his girlfriend. So maybe we'll add him into the mix here. This is just a small, so add that in like that. Or maybe boost the color on that. And oh, we've got this mask down here to do as well, so mustn't forget that. And this one's quite fun as well, with Eric in the picture there. So we'll add this in here like this. I love these templates, they're so easy to work with. And if I wanted to add some variation into this, I could desaturate one of these photos. So I could go to Image, Adjustment, Desaturate, which I like to do. Usually when I desaturate, I find that I have to boost up the highlights and make the shadows darker so that you get a more contrasty photo. They can also be done with the curves, of course. You can pull up to make it brighter and then pull down to make it darker. But I do like that mix of the color and the black and white. I feel like it goes really, really well. Let's go ahead and add this down here. Now, because I have dark blue at the top here, I feel like I want dark blue at the bottom. So I'm going to duplicate this paper here and bring it down and see if I can find, there we go, like that. So we've got a little bit of visual interest, but we've got a good space here for our journaling when I want to write that in there. And then one thing I might do here is just to go to Image Adjustment Levels and just make these papers just a little bit more contrasty because they're not as bright and vibrant. I feel like we can get away with doing that. That's another way that you can kind of manipulate your papers to make them work for your photos, is just to increase the levels just as you would a photo, really. And that's going to add some visual interest. We've already got the stitching in there, and so now it's a matter of finding some elements. So let's go and see what we have. We've used quite a few of the, so we have a heart. Maybe you can use this heart. Bring this in. I want to make sure we bring the elements in on top of all of those frames. So we could add that in. That goes quite well there. And again, I can change the color of this if I want to. So if I go to Hue and Saturation, I can change the color of the whole thing, but if I go to Image Adjustment, Hue and Saturation and select blues, then it should just change the blues part. This isn't changing as well as I would like. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep it as blue and maybe just increase the saturation of it just a little bit. And I could try actually changing the cyan too. So that's better, that works better than the blue. Just changing the hue ever so slightly. Really what I want is some red on here. So I'm looking at ways I can introduce some red. So usually a good way to do this is to use buttons. And I don't have many options for buttons here. I'll use these word labels. We'll add these up here. And again, because I've got a style here, I can select both those word labels and I can just click on the style and it's going to automatically apply that style to both those labels at the same time. So that's another time-saving tip. So this flower might work. Let's see. Let me get this flower to work. I really want some red. So we can add this over here like this and then go to Hue and Saturation. And this is going to work a little bit better, I feel. And if we increase the saturation, maybe lighten it up a little bit. And use the levels, then we can kind of get more of a red. And it looks like the center's got a bit of a minty green. So I'm going to try and, there we go. If I set that to cyan and move this lever, it's going to go more to a yellow. And then typically what I do here is, let's see what else we've got. I think this yellow flower, this flower might work as well. Lots of flowers, always. I like flowers, can I say? I always feel like there's room for a flower. So maybe this flower I'll put down here and maybe I'll hide it behind. So you want to vary the placement of your elements. So some of them are peeking out from behind the frames and some are sort of on top of the frames. That's going to create variation. Maybe change the size of that. I kind of like how this yellow comes in. We've got this visual triangle kind of happening here. And typically if I was doing a photo-inspired page, I'd be adding different frames to this. One of the things that would work pretty well, I think, with this is to go and take a look at these framed masks. I had a square one, and I could maybe look at using these framed textures or these framed edges. Oops. So that was where I pulled in the frame between a clipping mask and it unclipped the photo. So I just got to be careful about where I place my images. So I'm going to drag this in like this and then maybe just resize it. So I'm kind of creating frames. They don't fit perfectly, but I'm totally fine with that. It kind of adds a little bit of variation. And add it on the center there. I could also do a similar sort of thing with, I'm just going to close this out because I keep opening it up when I don't want to. Maybe use the paper texture part of it might work too. Let's see what this looks like. So I could go to edit, maybe rotate this by 90 degrees. Grab this like this. And add this around the edge, and this could be kind of like a border. So that blends pretty well, but if it doesn't blend so well, then you can kind of just smush those away, and then you could play with the blending modes here too. Linear burn, it looks like it's because it's black, so if I go to edit fill and we change this to more of a blue color, mid blue, then we get more of a result. So that's color burn, and that's linear burn. I quite like that effect. So when I like something, I tend to do it again. So let's go and open up a different mask. You've got to be careful about, so you can do it again, but you've got to be careful about not overdoing it, if that makes sense. So let's open this up and then drag it onto our canvas. I'm going to undo that auto select. And then go to edit, transform, and rotate by 90 degrees and add this one here, maybe at the top. And maybe we need to drag this behind the masks and then maybe just do that like that. And then we can do the same thing. We can go to edit fill with that blue color and then add the linear burn. Nudge this out just a little bit, like that. And then maybe just we'll get a little bit fancy. I feel like we can add something here where this kind of breaks. So if we go back to our transfers and overlays, or our Artsy transfers, I usually start with the easiest first, which is this. So maybe we can add this in. This is a nice edge overlay. We could add that down the bottom here. Maybe make it a bit smaller. I don't know if I love that. It was a little bit too much. We add this. See what this one looks like. Rotate it. Yeah, that's too much. Let's try this one. So that's kind of fun because it sort of kind of creates continuity with what's happening over here, especially if I resize it slightly. Bring it down. I want to make sure it goes underneath that that flower. I don't know what I did with that flower. That daisy. Press daisy there. So bring it between there. And I could also play around with maybe adjusting the opacity slightly. If I wanted to do that. I could also play around with blending modes too. and see. That's kind of fun with the linear burn or the multiply. Darker color doesn't work. So any of these darken might work. No. So it has to be multiply or linear burn. I think I like the linear burn. And you can play around with the lightness and the contrast. I can even go to the hue and saturation and play with the saturation if I want to make it more saturated. I can also use this colorize button, and that is going to add a color to it, especially if I want to go with more blue, and then I can make it more saturated. So like that. And then I could add a title in there. So let's go and see. I'm going to go back to Alfresco just for a change in titles. Let's Play works pretty well here. So we can add this up here. And I've got 3 lots of WordArt already, so I'm probably not going to be inclined to add another piece of WordArt there, because otherwise I'm going to end up with too many. So I think that that works pretty well. And it works well with the black. Typically I might change that to like a dark blue, but I feel like the black works because we've got the black in this photo down here. I could also play with different placements of this, change the size. So I could have it here if I wanted to. I could have it actually over the photo. So if I wanted it over the photo, I could place it like this. Of course, dark over a dark background. I want to invert that, and I can have that there. So I quite like that. That works quite well too. So maybe I'll keep that there. And then that way I can, let's go back to our Ikigai and go with reunion. So this, let's do this. And add this up here. So now I've separated those 2 WordArts, I can add in a little bit more WordArt. And then just go in and add my journaling. And I think I'm pretty much happy with that particular page like that. I really like the edges of those frames used as an edge on around the edges of these frames here. So that's just something I kind of came up with as I was working. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to take your questions. That was 4 layouts, so in an hour and 15 minutes, so that's not too bad. It proves that it can be done. Go ahead and save those. And let's see, so Nancy says, such a lovely page, thank you. Desert Arizona said, I had to look up Ikigai. It's a Japanese concept of referring to something that gives a person a sense of purpose, a reason for living. Great name for your APP, that's what I thought. Yeah, there's always a reason I pick the name. Sometimes if it's not a particular theme for the ArtPlay palette, then it's a feeling that I have when I'm creating it, so it feels right. But most of the time, the words are very important in the naming of the ArtPlay palette. It's rare that I just pick a word and just go, that'll do. It has to feel right if it doesn't make sense with the theme of the page. And then Nancy says, Anna is fascinating to watch to create her pages. I've had a lot of practice. Although I don't, make as many pages these days as the kids are getting older, it's hard to pin them down and actually get photos of them. But at least they'll let me take photos of them. Like I said, I was surprised being around other people's kids recently that they are not as inclined to let me take photos. So Ruby says, it will take me longer than an hour plus to do 4 pages. You'll get there though. Hopefully I've given you some good ideas though and things that you can work on. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get this uploaded. We leave really early in the morning. For those of you that weren't in the Connect session yesterday, we're driving Ella down to Arizona tomorrow. She starts college next week, and so we're going to get her settled down there, and so I'm going to be in the car for the next couple of days, unfortunately. Although I was pleasantly surprised when Eric told me it was just under 11 hours as opposed to 12 hours to drive down there, so that's better than 12 hours. Okay, Kay says it takes me days, and it's okay, it's okay that it takes you days. Like I said, I create these palettes so I have an idea of how these things should fit together. And so I already know when I'm creating them, well, this could maybe be used this way. this could be used another way. Adding the frames from the the fine edge frames and the textures to the templates, that was something I just kind of thought up as I was working, mainly because I typically, when I'm using these FotoInspired templates, I will add the fine edge frames, which are in the store. If you go to the FotoInspired category and you go to the frames, you'll see that there's a bunch of these fine edge frames. And so I typically use those, and I thought, well, instead of digging out those, what can I use to add a bit of visual interest to these blocks? And so that's when I thought, oh, I could use the pieces of the frames. They're not perfect. I think you could probably, if you wanted to, I wouldn't do this too much, but you could hold down the shift button and you could stretch them a little bit. I think you could probably get away with that to a certain extent. It's always a good way to test, is to go to 200 and just see how kind of stretched they look. So it doesn't look too bad to me. So you could do that. I actually personally, I think though, like it not being square. I like the variation of the rectangle over the square. I think that it's a nice nice change to, you know, what one would expect. Okay. Ruby Lynn says your ideas and tips are so helpful, Anna. That's really good. So you guys are liking these sessions then? It's worth doing, because to be honest with you, it takes me longer than this to write a blog post. So if I can do it in video format and and have it like this, then that works for me too. And I feel like I can share so much more in a video. And then Joanne says, great layouts, love this palette along with my 299 others that I love. You know what, that's a fair thing to say. I was just, I don't know if you guys have been over to the blog, but there's a new post. I did my FotoInspired, and I went back and I used, this was ArtPlay palette Sunkissed, I think. This ArtPlay palette must be like 11 years old. I'm not even sure it's still in the store. But it was so fun to go back to some of my older ArtPlay palettes. This one was the Twilight ArtPlay palette, and then I went back to, I think this was Heart Beach, for these pictures of when we were in Florida. So yeah, and then I also did some of my August pages too, and I went back and used some of the older, like Mountain High, and so they never go out of style. I think that especially with these FotoInspired pages, then you can really go back and use some of those older kits and make them work. So I do appreciate your support, and just know that I'm always dipping back into my old stuff too. It's really fun to do that. Okay, everybody likes the session, so thank you for that. Excellent. Okay, well, I don't have anything else. Kim says, life got in the way yesterday, so I'll watch the Connect replay. I know I missed you. There was a couple of people I was like, oh, I haven't seen them in a while, but I suppose it's summer. Everybody's kind of busy outside, and I don't blame them. So I would be outside too, and have been a lot this summer. So I've definitely taken a lot of time away, but I'm looking forward to getting back, and of course, getting back with you and doing some classes. That's what I really need to do. I need to get on with some classes. So it's been a while. I've done these like live sessions, but to actually pre-record some classes, that's going to be a change of pace for me. Okay then, well, I think that that's pretty much it. Oh, I almost forgot. One of the things that I haven't done, and I almost forgot last time, was just to run through some of the ways that the team have used the ArtPlay palette. So this is a layout by Nancy. I actually deconstructed this page yesterday in the AA Connect, and I'm going to be sending out a highlights email, hopefully tonight in a couple of hours, or maybe later this evening. I want to get to the gym at some point this evening. So when I get back, probably I'll send that out, but you'll be able to see all the different things that you can learn in the deconstruction of this page. And then I also deconstructed this page as well, and my dog wants to get out. So hang on a second, let me just let him out. He will sit there and he will bark until and whine until I let him out, and then I can't concentrate. So This page too I also deconstructed. I showed you this is using the ArtPlay palette Ikigai collection, and then I also show you how I combine photo blends, clipping masks with brushes to create this artistry here. This one's by Mikey. I believe she used the template here. She used the template with the bonus paper that comes with the bonus part of this collection, and then she used some of the bonus elements with elements from the ArtPlay palette to create this custom cluster, and then she filled the frames. I like how she's used one of the frames for her journaling. And this was another deconstruct from yesterday, how to create a more artsy approach with FotoInspired, and some fun techniques for adding in the artistry. I really like this one by Joan. She recolored the wooden butterfly to coordinate with her. It looks like an icy cool photo, but I do like the contrast of the different shades of blue throughout this page. This one I've had a request for the next Connect session, so I'm going to be using this in the next session. I had somebody ask how to color a photo with this sort of blue color, so I'm going to be deconstructing this one, hopefully, if Ulamay will send me the PSD file, which I'm sure she will. This one's by Michelle. She's done a great job here. This looks like an extraction, and she's added a drop shadow to it to kind of give it some dimension, and then she's recolored that little blue flower into more of a purple to coordinate with the goggles. I really like that. And then I love how she adds this stroke technique, this kind of a sticker technique to her titles to make them pop off the page. This was another layout that we deconstructed yesterday. I showed you guys how to use Photoshop filters to create the sketch element, and so that was a pretty neat technique. And I believe this one I deconstructed in the previous Connect session. So another great layout using a lot of visual triangles. And I'm going to be doing a class on visual triangles. I actually asked my team to send me a bunch of pages to create a blog post on visual triangles. And when I looked at it, I had so much content that I'm going to turn it into just a mini class. Probably a live class that we'll do at some point. And then Diane, of course, works in more of a portrait, sort of, not landscape, but landscape on the side. So as opposed to being square, she works in rectangular format. And so she always amazes me how she can wield the supplies to suit all of her photos. She always seems to be able to make them work. And then she just recently became a grandma, and so lots of pictures of the sweet babe. And then I love how she switched gears here from the blues to the yellows. Works really well with the yellows of the sunflowers. And I love how she has continued, she's recolored that daisy to look more like a sunflower. And I love the continuation of the flowers through the design. It sort of leads the eye. There's that repetition design principle that we all know about. This one's a fun one by Adrienne. Great use of white space here, very effective. Lots of areas of interest, and then the stark contrast of the white space. And I love the little butterflies at the top here with the urban threads. This one's from Anne. Of course, she is more of a photo artist than a scrapbooker, and so she's taken a portrait, dressed her up in the artistry, and has adorned her figure with the various elements that are included in the ArtPlay palette. And again, like I said, all of the green in here, you'd never think that she had been able to use the Ikigai ArtPlay palette, but she's used it quite successfully with the various, the bonus multimedia element, the lavender sprig that's included with the ArtPlay palette. And this looks like the bonus paper, pattern paper in the background here. I could be wrong, but it looks like she may have blended that with the solid paper and reduced the opacity and the saturation of the color. Another one from Michelle here, using the template, and so she has chosen just to create a focal point from the two photos, the framed photos. And so by adding the title work, you can see she's got 3 different title elements, and then the multimedia element. By moving all of those together, she's created a much larger focal point, and so there was no need to blend an image into the background here. This one is from our newer team member. This is from Megan. She's also a photo artist. I think that this would make a really lovely greeting card printed. I think that that would be really awesome. And then Laura always does a great job of switching up the supplies to support her photos. And so I love the bright punches of yellow in here, creating a visual triangle. And then the use of this sprig from the multimedia element that encircles her focal image. And then the addition of the green into the background area to support her images. And then this one we've already looked at, so I'll go ahead and delete that one. I don't know who did this one. This one is Charlene. So Charlene is our newest member, and if you have been into the AA Connect group lately, she has been doing the question of the day and the daily gratitude. So she's also a photo artist and a scrapbooker. And so lovely here. I like how she has taken the frame and she's layered it with the papers here. It gives it that vintage feel, and then the soft colors of the flower with the blue tones works really well with this palette. I also love that she's taken some of the older overlays. I don't use those nearly enough, but they are a great way to add texture to your solid papers. So if you go into the overlays section here, you'll see that there's quite a number of these different overlays, and you can color them to gray or a slight blue or something similar to that, place them over your photos and add a blending mode, and you get this really great texture like is shown here. And then the final one is from Michelle, cute little bear. I love how she's blended the little face down here. This looks like pin light blending mode. And then she's blended the dog into the top here and has the cluster of words and elements coming through the center. She's really good at combining text components with the multimedia elements. Okay, Liz has a question. So that is the team. Hopefully that provides you with some more ideas. And Liz says, Anna, you're doing anything for the Design Cuts birthday this year? I believe I am, but it's a secret. In fact, I've been writing it up today. That's all I can tell you. I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to be teaching, but I will be part of that event. I'm just kind of pulling it together right now. I think it happens in October. So yes, I can say I'm going to be there. I wasn't sworn to secrecy, but I'm going to keep it a secret what I'm going to be teaching during that session. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you ladies for coming out today. I didn't keep you today, so I'm going to pat myself on the back for that. Thank you for all the kind words for Ella. I will pass them on. You know, I'll keep you posted on how she's doing, of course. And yeah, hopefully we will be back here in Denver late on Friday night, and I'll be recovering over the weekend and probably super sad because it'll feel like there's a body missing from our house. But I'm excited too to get into our fall and hopefully have a great rest of the year. All right, ladies, I'm going to head on out. Have a wonderful week, and I'll be back in this space again soon. Take care.